Most people don't realize that horse racing tests for more drugs at lower levels than any other professional sport. We're very fortunate in California to have the Maddie Laboratory here at the School of Veterinary Medicine at University of California at Davis. California has a very flexible, responsive program. We're able to redirect resources very quickly as circumstances change. Our out-of-competition testing program is very effective, probably the best in the U.S. We've expanded into hair testing, which has become a very, very important tool. The pre-race testing program allows us to essentially eliminate the problem of milkshaking in horse racing in California. And lastly, our standard post-race testing is world-class and far and above normal laboratory standards.
So these are the California samples from Los Alamitos Racetrack. Then we receive blood and urine samples representing the paired samples that we get from the track. Initiates our chain of custody with the barcode labels that are present on the tubes. We put an internal barcode label so it's anonymous to the technicians as to what sequence the samples are received. And then also, in addition to the witness signature and the taken by, we also have a signature line that matches up with paperwork to establish the samples were from the racetrack and witnessed by someone representing the horse. Here at UC Davis in the Maddie Laboratory, we test about 70,000 samples per year. The majority of those are blood and urine samples that we get from pre- and post-race testing. So in addition to the pre- and post-race testing, we also archive a portion of every sample that we receive. So these samples are archived for 2 years. In the event that we have a finding for a prohibited substance or even a therapeutic substance in excess, we can go back for as long as 2 years and look at samples from the racetrack, or the horse racing board can notify us for samples from an individual trainer that they'd like to investigate. The best example, or a recent example, a few years ago, the drug dermorphin was used in quarter horse racing in New Mexico, in Oklahoma, and in Louisiana. We went back and tested horses that had come from those regions of the country and competed in California to see if any dermorphin was present. We found none, but it gave us additional assurance that it wasn't being used. These samples are from January, and they'll be held for 2 years from that date. We can see in a blood sample for days to weeks. We can see in a urine sample for weeks to months. We can see drugs in a hair sample for as long as 6 months to a year. Once we receive the hair sample, we'll cut it into smaller portions, and then we'll take those smaller fractionated cut pieces and pulverize that. The pulverized sample is done with a ceramic bead. Once the sample is pulverized, it becomes a powder, and we separate it by a typical extraction process. The powder, the remaining powder then is kept so that we can do further analysis. And you can see the different color would represent different hair color samples from the horses. So some horses have darker color, some have a lighter color. This would be from likely a bay horse, where this would be from a chestnut horse. About 10% of the samples that we receive now come from out of competition. Those are pre-race events or predicted events for graded stakes and other horses that might be perceived as coming up to a race. Those out of competition give us a large security blanket for horses that are coming into big races that they've never received a prohibited substance. Cindy's adding different reagents as part of the process for the sample extraction. The sample extraction allows us to take the urine sample, and she can do a large number of samples in this manifold simultaneously. Testing turnaround that we get for the samples, we get 72 hours from the receipt of samples. The time frame for shipping samples might be 3 to 5 days for arrival from the racetrack. Then we screen the samples in 72 hours and do confirmation in about 5 days of receipt of the screening results. We then report that result back to the California Horse Racing Board, and they would notify anybody of any analytical finding. 99% of the samples that we get are cleared immediately, and the testing will go on.
It's a long, careful process because people's livelihoods are at stake here. They can be penalized and they can be suspended. So we're very careful about it. But we're careful because it's the reason that we're in existence. We are here to protect the integrity of the sport in California.
So all of our studies, our regulatory studies, are performed in what we call an exercised research herd of horses. So these are thoroughbred horses. All of our horses are former racehorses. They all have completed their career as a racehorse and they become part of our research program. The reason we like to use these horses is because they provide a good model for the horses at the racetrack. So all of our horses are exercised regularly. We use this high-speed treadmill as well as an equicizer to keep the horses fit. And our goal is to, as closely as possible, mimic a fit racehorse. The reason we feel it's important to use these exercised research horses is because there have been studies done that have shown differences in the clearance of drugs in a fit horse versus a more sedentary horse, a non-exercised horse. So we're trying to provide the best regulatory recommendations that we can for the population of horses that we're trying to serve. In addition to studying therapeutic drugs, we also do a lot of investigations into prohibited substances, things that shouldn't be in the horse's system at any time. So we've done a number of studies looking at different substances such as cobalt, which was a big issue a couple of years back. We've also looked at carbazochrome, tranexamic acid, as well as nitratane. So not only do the studies that we do here at the Maddie Lab benefit California, but they also benefit the industry as a whole. So we've done a number of studies for the Racing Medication and Testing Consortium, as well as the Grayson Jockey Club. So looking at studies that will help benefit the welfare of the horse. All of the studies that we do here at the Maddie Laboratory are published in peer-reviewed journals. So our overall goal as part of this research program is to help ensure the welfare of the horse as well as the jockey that rides the horse in these races.
The chief function of the Horse Racing Board in protecting the integrity of the sport is the work done by the Maddie Lab. We're very fortunate that we have the resources that we do. It's necessary in order to protect the integrity of the sport.